I can't face people to know that I stayed home and I was supposed to be over there fighting for my country, so I went.
Oh my goodness.
I better look in there one time. Right there. Very good friend, that's me there.
I'm not sure.
Are you recording now? Oh. And I remember going under the Golden Gate Bridge, but we went there to go out and come back the same way. And I never will get the band played so good. Say, so long it's been good to know you. I thought that was a terrible song to play before leaving. They put me took me to Elwood. That's when the railroad, Pennsylvania Railroad, was still running. And they give me a meal ticket to go to Seattle, Washington. So I got on that train, went to Chicago. From there they sent me to Seattle, and I had first class service. They had a bed made for me. I went to the dining room car, had a good meal every day until I got there. I think it took us about 2 days to get there. Then they put us on a ship, and I remember they went to Fairbanks, Alaska, but we never got off the ship. I didn't remember, I just went over to the one side to see what Alaska looked like. The next day we went from there, and I never was so sick, and I thought, boy, those sissies, look at her sitting over the side of the ship, throwing up. I said, I'm not gonna do that, boy. I had to eat my words, because in a few days I was over there and all the toilet stools was plugged up. And everybody had their heads over the side of the ship throwing up, and it was terrible. And finally, when you start seeing seagulls coming around, you know you was pretty well across the seas, and the waters calmed down, everybody started feeling better. But boy, being seasick is something else. And I could still see the skeletons of the factories from World War II that was still standing. They hadn't got on their feet yet. I had a little bitty camera, and I sent them home. How I got them on, I don't know. My dad had a dark room in his bathroom, and he developed them for me. It was just a little bitty match cabinet. I kept it in my pocket.
So are those bunkers that you built?
Yeah, that's down the foxhole. I dug mine pretty deep, and I put dirt around mine the night on Heartbreak Ridge. So when hand grenades would hit the dirt, they wouldn't roll in the hole. Story I'll tell you. Well, they told me to go and make contact with the enemy. So they gave me 12 guys. And I was radio man, so I put my radio on. You know, it was just like a hand telephone. So they followed me down this ridge, and I know we was behind about a mile, behind the lines. And all at once, we had to be real quiet. All at once, their voices was, I mean, loud. I had to go like this. I bet they went 30 feet from us down in the brush where they couldn't see me. And I just made a motion for us to go back, you know. And so I went back, and I told them we made contact. If they'd have seen me or found me there, we would have had a chance. That little boy there, we found him along the ditch. And so we picked him up and took him back to camp. And the sergeant fell in love with him, and he kept him. And they sent him home after the war was over. He adopted him. George Wainwright, he was there before I was. and he was hid in a sewer tank. When he could hear the enemy above him, he hid there till they left. And he finally made it home. He was from West Virginia.
So he called him Lord.
You look awful happy.
Well, when you get away from the enemy and you're not afraid of getting killed that day, you're happy. Boy, we were close friends. Didn't I ever tell you the story of that?
No.
Well, everybody gets to go on R&R. In the line, you
Yeah.
get to go to R&R. And I went to Osaka. And so the truck was waiting on me. So I went down to the tailgate of the truck. And I was getting ready to go in, and Sam was up on top, all ready to leave. He says, "Bill, I don't think I want to go now. Why don't you go in my place?" So I jumped up on the truck, and he jumped off on the ground. And so I went on to Korea, to Osaka, Japan. So when I come back, they drove me back to where they picked me up, and I noticed everybody's belongings in a line. I said, "What happened? What's all these personal items laying on the ground in a row?" And he says, "Oh, while you were gone, your company went on a patrol, and about all of them were killed. And one of them was Sam Ferguson." And I talked to a guy that was right beside of him. He said he got a bullet right in the chest. That was him right there. One thing I do remember that I know if I hadn't have done it, we'd have had a lot of guys killed. We was walking down this old road, and all at once, bullets started flying, guys started getting hit, and everybody said, "Well, there's a sniper ahead of us on the side or somewhere." And I don't know why, but I spotted him. I could see his head sticking out of the foxhole, and I watched him. He'd come up out of that foxhole and shoot. So I went down the side of the hill and got behind a log, and I spotted him, and I'm pretty sure I got him, because he come up about 3 times, and when he look at me, and he couldn't find me. So he come up, the last time he come up, I had shot, and he would drop down, and he never come back up. So I think I got him. So I motioned for us to go on. We were safe. The guy in front of me stepped on a lineman, and he was a good friend. He was from California, and they was rich people, and they wrote to me. So he stepped on a landmine and killed him. In fact, we couldn't find nothing left of him. He was just a big landmine and just black smoke. Couldn't find nothing wrong with him. I can't even remember his name now. So I thought I'd do a good deed. They was all worried about what happened to him. About 3 months later, I wrote back to his, I had an address. So, I was on the front line, a guy, a warrant officer, stuck his head down in my foxhole. He said, "It's Corporal Smith. Do you remember writing a letter to so-and-so out in California, this so-and-so's parents?" "Yes." "And what'd you do that for?" "Well, I figured they wasn't worried about him since he was killed, and they probably didn't know. I didn't tell them about getting on a landmine." "Well," he says, they may want to take your medals away, give you a dishonorable discharge, and send you home without anything." And I told him that he said, "Let me go back and talk to him, your story, what you told me." So they did. And if you don't hear from me, don't worry about it. So that's what happened. I never got any more letters from him. There is one. See how the trees are cut from shells. We were back there on kind of like a little rest period for about a week or two. Mm-hmm. And get new clothes and shaved for the first time. Yeah, where I worked at, the women there would send me candy and stuff. And one was, she had a wood like Peg Leg Smith was her name. Boy, she sent me fudge you would not believe. And I couldn't eat all that fudge. It great big boxes of it. So the guys down the line, hey, I got fudge. And one time, our feet was wet. And everybody had athletes' feet so bad. So I had you can't buy it now, it's called T4L. And when you put it on, you'd almost scream and holler, but it would dry it up like that. Next day, you wouldn't have it. So Mom sent me a great big bottle of it, and I shared it with the guys on the line that had bad feet. One time I said, Corporal, we have to have some water or our canteens are empty. So they gave me this canteen. It was a 5-gallon can, empty. So can you go back so and so far, there'll be somebody there that's got water to put in there. So it was cold that night, oh my gosh. And so I took the can, and the only time I could see the wall was when the flash of the artillery would light up the ground. And they had wires everywhere. See, they didn't have wireless telephones then. I stole and fell for about, and I fell in empty foxholes. I finally made it back, but the can was about half empty. We were spilling all that water. A lot of nights, them Chinese would come up there and on a line, and then we had wires set up in front of the barbed wire. When they tripped over it, it would blow a flare up in the air like a parachute, and it'd light up just like daylight. You could see them coming. Or Bloody Ridge. That was the worst one. We left it. We'd been there for a month on the line. And they come up, we had 2 points they come up on every night. And it is like 4th of July, them tracer bullets. And they was just killing Chinese and North Koreans. And they would blow a bugle before they come up them hills. When they come up them hills, so we knew when they was coming, that was one thing. When they blew that bugle, here they come, a screaming and a hollering. And in the next morning, they were just stacked up there by the barbed wire. So they didn't come up and get the dead if they was that close. They usually picked their wounded and take them back. But they left them there, and it got so bad, we had to take a detail of us and go out and bury them. And sometimes we couldn't get them buried deep enough, some of their hands, legs sticking out of the ground, and it was awful. Now here's a little Bible I kept in my pocket. And when I wrote a letter home to somebody, I tried to keep addresses in there. This is where God was with me. I got a diagram of it. This mortar, I don't know what caliber it was a big one. I heard it coming, so I hit the ground real flat, I didn't know, and it hit not about for that table. Into the ground, made a big plunk, and it didn't go off. If it had went off, I'd have been home in a body bag. There's no way. Because the fan on it was 3 or 4 inches in diameter, and it smoked. Well, I seen it smoking. I got up and got out of there as fast as I could. This is the story I got. 3 platoons retreated. The Chinese run them back. But my sergeant was one of those guys in World War II. He says, don't retreat, let's go forward. So we went ahead and we drove them Chinese off of the hill. We drove them off. But that's when we dug in. And that that evening, they come back at us. That's when the big fireworks, again, we had them all day from probably 8 in the morning till that night. And my platoon drove the ones we had ahead of us, we drove them off. But we found out later that 3 of the platoons retreated. And my radio went bad, and my sergeant, he said, I never will forget my call sign was Gaslight 7 Able. He said, try and get a hold of K Company, because we're left up here by ourselves. We need help to hold this overnight. And they didn't show up, it was night. So we had to dig in and try to save that hill.
Yeah, until they're just,
You have to be in combat. You have to have bullets flying over your head. You don't get this going in the Army and just take basic training. You actually got to be shot at and bullets over your head. And this is for gallantry in action with Silver Star. And then the Purple Heart is for being wounded in action. My captain says, I want you to write Corporal Smith up. He deserves a Silver Star. So that's what I got. You know, I don't know whether I deserved it any more than the rest of them, but I say the dead should have just as much as a Silver Star as anybody. So one day, they said, Corporal Smith, come forward. You're going home. Dwight, shoot, I never thought about it until you come here. But I just brought back old memories. That boy, when he told me that, I ran. And there that truck going in, that dust. And I was heading for Tokyo. And that's where they got me on a ship heading for home, San Francisco. When I got to San Francisco, they said, would you like to contact your mom and dad? We would like you to tell them, you're coming home. And they said, what's your phone number? So we had one of the old party phones. I said, well, my phone number is too long to the short. And they just laughed. And it went through. It was a little old school bus. They made it into a switchboard. And that's how I got home. The taxi cab driver, I had my duffel bag. I said, I'm going home to see my mom and dad. So he said, I'll tell you what I'll do. For a $10 bill, I'll drive you home to your house out in the country. And he did. And boy, you ought to see my folks. I had got out in the house and they was asleep. Boy, they heard me, here they come. They saved my job because it was negotiated that anybody set off the Army or war they would have to save your job for you till you got back. When I come back, my chair was still sitting there on the front, on that line, with my name was still on the back of the chair. So I had a job to come home to. And George Wright was my friend. He was the one that told me about they was hiring. And so I run over there and put my application. I didn't even get to leave. They said, would you want to start today? And so they took me back on that 801. That's where I started. I spent I got credit for 38 years, but I had to take 2 years in the Army. So, but my job was there waiting on me when I got home.